I'm 34 male, and for the last decade, I've been the guy behind the curtain. My father and I started a tech company in our garage. He was the salesman, the personality. I was the one who actually built the product. I wrote the code, the original algorithm that made our company worth a fortune. We were a solid team. Then came my stepsister, 32. She joined us about 5 years back, brought in for a marketing role. To put it simply, she's the kind of person who could talk her way into anywhere, but has no idea what to do once she's there. She's all buzzwords and sharp suits, with my dad's charisma, but zero of his integrity. I never liked the way she looked at the company, like it was a prize to be won, not a family business to be nurtured. Things went south fast when my dad announced he was retiring. He said it was for his health, but he seemed perfectly fine to me. It felt off, rushed. He then started pushing for my stepsister to take over as CEO. I was floored. I was the CTO, the co-founder, the guy who knew every single line of code that made us money. It made no sense. But my dad kept saying she had the killer instinct for the public market and that I was too much of a creator to be a CEO. For his sake, I bit my tongue and agreed. I figured I could keep things running from my end. Big mistake. The board meeting where she was appointed was a total sham. Dad gave this big speech. They all rubber-stamped, and bam, she was a new CEO. She gave me this big, fake smile, shook my hand, and called me the unshakable foundation of the company. It was nauseating. That meeting wrapped up at 4 p.m. At 4:05 p.m., her new assistant came and told me the new CEO wanted to see me in my office. My own office. I walked in, and she was already sitting behind my desk like it was a throne. 2 huge security guys I'd never seen before were standing by the door. She didn't even bother to look up from her phone. "We're making some changes," she said, her voice flat and cold. "A new, more aggressive direction. Your role is now redundant." I honestly just stared at her, thinking it had to be some kind of sick joke. Redundant? I built this entire thing. The platform, the architecture, all of it. What are you talking about? She finally met my eyes, and there was nothing there, just cold ambition. "Yes, and we appreciate it. But you're part of the old guard. You're slow. You're holding us back. Security will walk you out. Your final check is in the mail." I couldn't even process it. I looked at the guards, then back at her smug face. My whole life's work was in that building. My team, the people I'd hired and mentored, were just outside the door, and I was being tossed out like I was a janitor. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I just turned around and let them escort me out. The walk of shame through the office was brutal. Everyone just stared, confused and scared. My badge didn't even work on the front door. They had already deactivated everything. In the space of 5 minutes, I went from co-founder to a nobody on the sidewalk. The next day was a nightmare. The first thing I saw was a company-wide email forwarded to me by a friend on my old team. It was a masterpiece of corporate spin. My stepsister announced my departure with a lot of flowery language about me leaving to pursue new ventures. She made it sound like my choice, like we'd had a friendly handshake, and I'd ridden off into the sunset. It was a bald-faced lie designed to make her look like a smooth, decisive leader. Then she went after my guys. She held an all-hands with my engineering team and basically put a gun to their heads. She offered them huge raises and stock options, but only if they signed new, ironclad NDAs and non-competes. The message was obvious. Forget me, get on her team, or get out. She was trying to buy their loyalty and erase me from the company's history. I called my dad, expecting him to be furious. I thought he would fix this, but he sounded weird, hollowed out. He just kept repeating the same tired lines. "Son, you have to let her lead. It's her turn now. Don't make things difficult." It was like talking to a robot. He sounded confused, and it was clear she had gotten to him. A horrible feeling started to creep in that this wasn't just a power grab. Something much darker was going on. Finally, I took the joke of a severance package she'd offered to my lawyer. He was reading through it, shaking his head, when he stopped and looked at me. This is all standard, but it's based on a huge assumption. When you started the company, Did you assign your original code to the corporation or did you license it? It was like a switch flipped in my brain. I remember the first lawyer we ever hired, a stuffy old guy who drilled into my head. Never, ever sign your core IP. License it. It's your leverage. It keeps you in the driver's seat. We had created a licensing agreement. I was a licensor. The company was the licensee. I hadn't looked at that document in a decade. I drove home and tore through my old storage boxes. Under a pile of old college tech books, I found it, the original incorporation binder. And there in black and white was the clause. The license of the software that ran the entire company was granted on one unbreakable condition, that I remain an executive officer or a board member of the company. By firing me, my stepsister hadn't just been a jerk. She had committed a massive company-killing blunder. She had breached the contract. The license was now void. Effective immediately, she was the CEO of a company that had no legal right to use its own product. The secret sauce wasn't hers. It was, and always had been, mine. My lawyer's grin was as wide as mine. We didn't just have leverage. We had a nuke. He drafted a cease and desist letter that was short, brutal, and sent directly to each member of the board. CNG, my dear stepsister. It laid out the breach of contract and informed them that as of my termination, they were engaged in willful copyright infringement. They had 48 hours to cease all use of my software. Every sale, every client login, every single operation was now illegal. The explosion was immediate. Less than an hour later, she called me, absolutely screaming. What did you do? You're destroying everything Dad built. You're trying to ruin me. I let her shriek until she ran out of breath. First, I said calmly, you already fired me, so you don't get to use a family card. Second, you seem to be confused. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply protecting my personal property, which your company is currently stealing. You have a choice. You can either ignore my letter, and I will sue you into personal and corporate bankruptcy, or you can call a board meeting, tender your immediate resignation for cause, and they can appoint me CEO. She actually laughed. They will never, ever do that. You are delusional. Then she tried crying, the fake sobs catching in her throat. Please, don't do this to me. You had me thrown out of the building I built. I said, my voice cold. The time for please is over. Your 48 hours are ticking. I hung up the phone. While she was panicking, I made one more call to my dad's executive assistant of 20 years. My stepsister had fired her too on day one. The assistant was heartbroken but ready to talk. She told me everything. How my stepsister had been systematically isolating my dad for months, convincing him he was forgetful, that he was making bad decisions. She blocked his old colleagues from seeing him, and even found a shady doctor to tell him he was on the verge of a health crisis. She hadn't earned her position. She had stolen it by psychologically abusing our father. That was it for me. This wasn't just about my job anymore. This was about justice. The company's lawyers came at me with threats, but they had nothing. My documentation was perfect. My stepsister's big plan was to hold an emergency board meeting and paint me as an extortionist. But I moved first. An hour before her meeting, I sent my own email to the board. It included the licensing agreement, a notarized affidavit from my dad's assistant detailing the elder abuse, and my final non-negotiable offer: terminate her for cause, force her to forfeit all her shares for her actions, install me as CEO, and I would grant a new, permanent license for the IP. I heard the meeting was a massacre. She started her speech, and the chairman just cut her off and slid my documents across the table. When they saw the proof of how she'd manipulated her own father and exposed the entire company to an extinction-level lawsuit, they turned on her instantly. They saw she wasn't a leader. She was a cancer. They fired her on the spot and accepted all of my terms. The next morning, I walked back into the office. My old team saw me and broke into applause. And then I saw her being escorted out by the same two guards, holding a small cardboard box. Our eyes met across the lobby. Her face was a mess of pure hatred. You will regret this, she snarled. I didn't say a word back. I just stood there and watched her go, Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is just letting someone crash and burn from their own stupidity. The company is mine now, truly mine. My dad is finally getting the help he needs, and we're slowly rebuilding our relationship. The audit, by the way, found she was already trying to sell our tech to a rival. Now she has the DA to deal with. So yeah, she fired me. And in the process, she handed me all the ammunition I needed to fire back. If you're into stories where karma hits like a freight train, you've come to the right place.